Now that goes against everything that you've been taught your whole life. Everything you've been taught your whole life. You've been taught that you think with your mind. But in the Quran, it talks about what the mind does. Think about some of the things the Quran says about the mind. Jesus said, let us forget the body. He said, let us forget the flesh and go with mind. And go with mind. So therefore, he is identifying that the mind is a vehicle that we could use to transcend boundaries, that we could use to transcend time and space. So when the Prophet Muhammad, he talked about going from Mecca to Jerusalem and back to Mecca in one night, the night's journey. How did he travel? He said he traveled on an animal called Barak, and this animal in one stride, he moves as far as his eyes could see at the speed of thought. At the speed of thought, he was traveling with the mind. You understand what I'm saying? What else did he say about the mind? He said, these tools remind me of the ones we handle in the workshop of the mind. So he's telling us that there is a workshop in the mind. And he's saying where we build up thought. He said where things are made of thought and where we build up character. Now he's telling us what we're supposed to be doing in the workshop, but that's not what you have to do because your mind is yours. You can change it when you want to.
Islam, Islam, Islam. Paradigm Shifting the podcast is the Sheik Maurice Pennington Bey, the Moorish master student. And today I got my son, Caste Pennington Bey. I got my little cousin, Dede Lester Bey. All the Beys. It's a Bey thing going on. So, eels, don't get mad. Don't get upset. Don't get salty. Just do y'all thing. You know what I mean? Y'all welcome to hit the stream, to hit the little stream yard button to come in and join the fray if that's what you want to do. But on this day today, we're going to attack the subject of racism and the caste system. But before we do that, I want to say Islam to the Moors. How y'all feel?
Islam, I'm good. How y'all feeling?
Islam, all is well. All is definitely well.
Wow.
All right, give me Islam. Give me 1 second. Let me make sure everything is what it's supposed to be on this Facebook demonstration. Y'all know all day from Sunday school to now we've been catching the flux with the internet. the internet been trying the Moors all day, man. Been trying the Moors all day. So give us a second. Let's let me get everything situated the way it's supposed to be. I want to make sure before we even start the conversation that I get this demonstration shared to all the. I want everybody to hear this. Okay, so that's not gonna work. Give me 1 second. Let me go to the trusted telephone device. For whatever reason, on your computer when you go to share like a live stream or something like that, it don't allow you to just to share to everywhere all at once, but on the phone it does. So just do this like this, so you can get. All right, there we go. All right, Islam. So today's topic is the origin of racism. All right. Now, before we move on and really dig and delve deep into the origin of racism, I want to ask you young boys a question. All right, I want to ask y'all, what is racism? Like, what defines racism?
I guess I can go first. So really, it's the difference between like racism and prejudice. A lot of people don't really get into the difference. I don't really understand the difference. Really, what we see today in modern day racism is somebody basically opposing a group because of the race race that they are. And I say race with air quotations because something that I
Okay.
was told in 10th grade is that race is not real. It was made up, and it's been stuck with me. Race is made up. It was a construct made to keep people down.
Wow. So, wait, so I'm curious. You say you was told that in the 10th grade, right?
Hmm.
And right now you're in the 12th grade. So, who told you this though? Like, was it a teacher? Was
My
it
80-year social justice teacher, Miss Leah Calloway.
a 80-year-old social justice
Oh,
teacher
ADL. It was
or
ADL's
ADL?
principles that we had. It was a class at my high school, and
Okay.
that class for sophomores is called social justice. And I forgot what we was going over. And once she always said, and anybody who know Miss Calloway who see this or went to perspectives, they know she always said she do not believe in race because race is a social construct that was made up.
Islam. I like that. She says it's a social construct that was made up. I really like that. You know, now in the Moorish Science Temple of America, the Prophet Noble Ali teaches us that there's only one race, the human race.
And
It's
that's the human race.
subdivided. That's it. But now it is subdivided. So you do have Asiatics and you do have Europeans. A lot of people would teach that, that the European is some subhuman grafted thing or something of, something along those lines. Whereas in the Moorish Science Temple of America, that's not what we teach. It's not something that we prescribe to. You know, we don't teach it. We don't prescribe to it. There's only one race, the human race, right? And Allah is the Father of the universe. So Allah is the Father of everything in the universe. It begs us to ask questions. Now it begs us to really delve deep into our own self, to delve deep into the world and what we know about the world and where the world is. It begs us to ask questions that maybe we we didn't feel comfortable asking. And that's like, okay, well, what is the origin of something like racism? Where does it come from? Did we create it? did
Mhm.
did Allah why did Allah let it to be? Because racism affects people in so many ways. I mean, like, using myself as an example, somebody who did 20 years, 3 months, and 24 days in prison for a little bit of nothing when it came to how much drugs I was actually charged with. A little bit of nothing in comparison to people who get caught with, metric tons of the same drug and get slapped on the wrist. So this is racism without a doubt or without a contradiction. We are bearing witness to a caste system where one classified caste within that system is being treated differently than others. There's no arguing that. There's no debating that. Not no intelligent debating of it. Not no intelligent argument can be made that it doesn't exist. You know, um, so we ask ourselves, where did it come from? Where did it come from? Now, for your teacher to say, hey, racism or race does not exist, I understand that. While at the same time, even if we could stand on without a doubt or contradiction that racism itself did not exist, that race did not exist, we could not get rid of the fact that racism does. Do we understand that?
Mhm.
All right. So now my question is, what does racism look like today, in 2025? What does racism look like?
Man, there's so many different forms. Prime example, I can give you an example as what's going on current day. Um, these ice raids that's going on and stuff. Um, because an ICE agent is judging people based off how they look and the color of their skin, they actually ended up detaining a U.S. Marshal in federal court today. Not today, around sometime this week. A federal U.S. Marshal who was going to do his job inside a federal court, an ICE agent detained him just off of how he looked. That's the
Now
truth. That's an
that
example of racism today.
that is beyond bananas, bro. Listen, that is the craziest crap ever. Now, how do you come out from up under something like that? Like how do you how do you explain it away? How do you say um that what we are doing is right or that is correct or that is a system that we should enact? The Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America tells us, it teaches us in the chapter called The Insufficiency of Knowledge. I want you Moors to listen because y'all young Moors, all right? Y'all just coming into the Moorish Science Temple of America. As members of this temple, it's gonna come a time where you have read every single instruction for Quran 1,000 or more times. It's going to come a time where you have seen throughout the course of your life, while you're living your life and going about your everyday stuff, where you will see, you know, the examples that the Prophet Noble Drew Ali presents in the Quran 100 times each. And this is one of those times. In the Quran, it tells us that it will be better for 10,000 guilty individuals to go uncharged than for you as the guide of the nation to be the reason why one innocent life is sacrificed because you decided to sacrifice their life. The insufficiency of knowledge tells us this. So we have seen over and over again throughout the course of the current regime. Hold on, I got an echo going on in my ear. Throughout this current regime, we have seen over and over again how so many American citizens have been, sent to foreign countries. One guy was sent to a foreign country and put in prison. And even though the judge said to the people who sent them, hey, y'all need to let this guy, y'all need to bring this guy back or whatever. The White House say, hey, we're not bringing nobody back. That's not what we're going to do. But I still like to think that that's one of the most extreme examples of racism. I want to show y'all something. I want to show y'all something that I think that a lot of American people have not been paying attention to. The executive branch of the government right now, they came in, one of the first things they did was they said they want to get rid of all of the federal employees who have been employed due to what they considered affirmative action or DEI programs. So tons of Asiatic people who had these government jobs were fired, sent home, lost their jobs. So basically what the current regime is claiming is that none of these Asiatics would have been employed if it was not for these programs. Forget what their grades were while they were in school, in college. Forget what their performance has been since they've been on the job. All right. The only reason why they are here is because of these programs. Now, if that is the case, if that's true, then these jobs that they are doing, none of this is performance based. All of this is you either look like me or you don't. It's what you're saying, because you're saying that everybody who don't look like you are they only have these jobs because they look like us. Now, with that being the case, we're going to get rid of this program, and we're going to get rid of everybody who we consider, who we think were employed because of this program. Now, everybody on the social media platforms and all that stuff, they said what they had to say about it. You know, those sick individuals who voted for Donald Trump and his regime, you know, they want to try to play it down. And then now we see that there is an attack on Harvard. And a lot of us, you know, we might not know what the origin is of this attack. Like, you know, we might just say, hey, you know, they're attacking Harvard because Harvard is bucking against the system. We don't want to acknowledge the fact that George Washington Carver went to Harvard. We don't want to acknowledge the fact that Barack Obama went to Harvard. We don't want to acknowledge the fact that the author of the Miseducation of the Negro went to Harvard. And this is an Ivy League school who, throughout the course of its history, since the history of this school, it has allowed for students who qualified according to the standard that they established, no matter what the color of their skin was, they could come to this school and be educated. And these individuals receive an extremely high quality education. Ain't that right? Yeah. So now we saying, okay, so, you know, people can look past that. That's only one school. All right. That's only one school. They ain't talking about Yale. But when you look at the history of Yale, and we know that Yale was formed and founded by Preston Scott Bush, we know that it will never come under attack. Yale is also the clubhouse of the Skull and Bones fraternity, so it will never come under attack. Never. But then we see that the Job Corps have come under attack. They say they want to do away with the Job Corps. Why? Because the Job Corps provide for underprivileged or poverty-stricken individuals to receive a high quality of education according to their performance. Now, my son, who right here, Caste Pennington Bey, could bear witness. You can tell us, Cash. You can tell us. You went to Job Corps twice, ain't that right?
Yeah.
And the first time you messed up in Job Corps, they kicked you out, didn't they?
Yep.
And when you went the second time, you took it serious.
Yep.
And what did you receive? You received what?
A technician.
But when you went there bull junking, they kicked your butt out, didn't they?
Wow, they zero tolerance.
They zero tolerance. So these jobs, so it's not about the performance. It's all about the fact that this is to them considered another way that people who look like us can become qualified to compete. And they don't want to compete with us. So all of this, so the whole DEI thing was a precursor. They were establishing a precedent by which they could then turn around and say that our young peoples, ages 16 through 21, who need extra help, cannot get it from Job Corps or government-funded programs because they don't want to compete with you. See, they know what you go through every day in these ghettos that we fixing to get ready to talk about. They know what you go through in these underprivileged communities, or what they call low-income housing. They know what we go through. They know what we up against. And when ones rise up to the point where we can meet the standards of a Harvard, despite growing up in the ghettos where we come from, or where we decide, make the conscious, intelligent decision despite growing up in the ghettos where we come from, to go to Job Corps so that we could pursue better living conditions for ourselves and for our families. They don't want to compete against that. And these blind, ignorant, so-called social media influencers who have got behind this regime are enemies to the cause of uplifting their own people, and justice must catch them. By order of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Am I lying, Moors? When y'all come to the meeting, y'all hear the Prophet Noble Drew Ali say this. Didn't we go over the Prophet's warning today in the meeting in Sunday school?
Yeah, we
Didn't
did.
the Prophet Noble Drew Ali warn us against just this? He did. So anyone wearing a turban or a fez while supporting individuals who are clearly trying to cut down every bridge leading to progress for the Asiatic nation, y'all crazy. Y'all are crazy. All right, so I know I've been talking like a mother. I want to ask, okay, so the topic today is the roots of racism. Okay, before we get into this, I want to ask you more is this. What is a root? What does roots mean?
Like the beginning, where it started.
Okay, but it gets a little deeper than that, Mo.
Answer.
What you say, Mo?
Like the center of it, like the main cause.
The cause of it, okay. Okay, because flowers have roots, right? Trees have roots, right? What does the root do for the tree or the flower?
Where it like draw all its nutrients and the stuff it needs to grow.
That's right. That's right. So it is the thing that sustains the tree, or it sustains the flower, or it sustains the racism. All right. Hold on. Melissa, come open the door. You draw? It's the thing that sustains the racism. So what is it that sustains the racism?
Honestly, I think it's generational years of teaching, because I don't feel like nobody just is born and woken up to be racist or think in a racist way. I think it's years of like teaching and embedding. Because if you look at two little kids, they don't see color, they just see their friends. There's been plenty of videos where we see, I just seen a video up on Facebook, a European and an Asiatic, two little kids, they cut their hairs the same way so their teachers wouldn't be able to tell them apart.
Mm.
You can't tell me that's not a true example of racism being taught.
Mm.
Well, not like how racism is taught, because nobody's born to,
No,
because
that's
you
an
will put
example
this
of how
color.
racism is taught. Yeah, I absolutely understand exactly what you're saying. I understand exactly what you're saying. I'm gonna tell you something that happened to me a couple weeks ago. I was out working. We were working at a library out in Chillicothe, Illinois. And y'all know I pressure wash, clean windows, and do stuff like that. So while I'm out working, I'm unrolling the hoses. I got my head down, and I look and I see a broken piece of pencil hit the ground right in front of me. And I look up and I see these little European guys walking by, and they looking crazy and laughing. And I realized that one of them had threw the pencil at me. And I get furious, Mo. Listen, Mo. I get furious. I mean, I am beyond angry. But these are kids. So I'm looking at them, and then they literally say the N word. So I realized without a doubt or a contradiction that exactly what their intentions are, what they mean. Now these, so now another young guy is coming behind them, way behind them, and he's like, "Man, we seniors. Like, today was our last day of class." And I looked at him, and then I looked at them, and the anger kind of went away, and I started to just feel bad. I really can't even explain, the actual energy, but it just was like I felt really, really bad. I felt like it was so wrong, and somebody was responsible for it. And I thought about how I could have or would have hurt, you know, this young guy in the past. Like, and that was scary. But I also realized that somebody is teaching these young people this, because just like you said, our children don't grow up with this concept. They don't grow up, understanding hate. They don't grow up desiring it. Like, do I wonder if enough people in our world really remember that as a child, you do not desire any of the negative character traits of the human state. You do not desire to feel hatred or anger, despair, sadness. We don't desire these feelings. Our only desire is comfort, joy, happiness. I mean, I'm one of those people who remembers my entire life. I remember when I was a child. I remember when I was a little kid, a little baby, and I wanted, my mom or my big sister to change my pamper. I remember this. So I remember what I felt back then. And I only felt I just wanted happiness. I just wanted to be content. All right. So the desire to even go into the realm of anger and hatred and madness is taught. So when this little joker threw this pencil at me and then, called me, you know, out my name, I just felt bad about it. Right. I just felt really, really bad about it. And I said, somebody taught him this. And that person is wild and crazy and so wrong for that. You understand me? Now, I grew up in a time, I'll be 45 years old in a couple of hours. My birthday is June 9th. So in a couple of hours, I'll be 45 years old. I know that my son is 26. He'll be 27 next month. You are what, 19 years old? More 19 years old. Have you experienced like the blatant forms of racism, like the outright, calling someone calls you a Negro, a nigger, or somebody just outright was like, oh, you're not supposed to be here. Like, I remember a police officer told told us this, me and my friends when we were younger, like 14 years old in the park. You're not supposed to be in this neighborhood. Like, have you ever experienced that?
Yeah,
You did? Tell me about it.
man. It was so many times. The one time that I always remember, it was my birthday actually. Me and my daddy went out. We were in the car with him, one of his friends from childhood, a group full of Asiatics, and we all got locks. Me, my daddy, his friend, everybody. Uh, the police officer pulled the car over, and you know they asked him what's the reason for the stop. First he say the headlight out, then he said he smelled weed. Now he need to search the car for a gun. So they pulled everybody out the car, put everybody in cuffs, including me. I think I was like 8, 9. Mind you,
They put you in handcuffs.
mm-hmm, put me
Wow.
in handcuffs. My daddy and his friend, they going off rightfully so. You got my son in handcuffs, you got my nephew in handcuffs. They telling my mama and my grandma and them they gotta stay on the sidewalk. They can't even come and get me. My daddy and my uncle, like, there go his mama right there.
Hmm.
And then an Asiatic sergeant pull up. And we thinking by him, he was even more worse than the Europeans. And I never forget. And if I ever see this lady, I always remember her face. It was an Asiatic female sergeant who pulled up, and she saw what was going on. And she was like, let that baby go to his mama. And she was the one who took me out of the handcuffs and took me over there to my mama. And she asked the officers, what was your reason for the stop? And their words was they looked as suspicious. And she threw them up alive, made them let everybody go. She personally apologized for the incident and stuff. And I think if you go on my Facebook page, you probably can still see when she was live streaming from it's years back. You have to keep trolling, but she don't never take nothing down, so it might still be up there, the whole incident.
Hmm.
And that was like one of the real times it was like just something that stuck with me.
Wow. What about you, Cash? You ever had that type of experience?
Um, I mean, a teacher used to say that like classroom and stuff like that when I was younger. He used to be like saying stuff, but it wasn't just me though. He used to be saying it to other people too. Like, what are you doing here? And all this and stuff like that.
A
And then,
teacher?
yeah, man, yeah.
Wow.
But his problem was, man, he was crazy.
See, that's the one thing that I could say about growing up in Chicago. Like growing up in Chicago, Chicago is the most segregated city in the United States of America. So when I was growing up in Chicago, I never had a European teacher until I got to high school. I had a European teacher in my second year of high school one time. Other than that, I never had it. I never had. Oh no, I did. I had a European teacher in the 8th grade when I went to Iraq, but he was real cool. His name was Mr. Donegan. He was real cool, but for the most part, Chicago is really segregated. Like even the police officers, they weren't Europeans. So my first time ever experiencing racism, I still was a child. We were me and my mom was at we were at Jules over in Bridgeport. I don't know why my mom used to always like to go to this Jules over in Bridgeport. Y'all know how Bridgeport is over there where Mayor Damien is from. And we were in there, and I was in the toy aisle. So I was a little kid. I was in the toy aisle where they had all the toys, and some other European kids came in there, and they were older than me. I was real young. They were older than me, and they came and they said they didn't call me a nigga or nothing like that, but they kind of acted like they wanted to be on some movie type stuff. And I had a cast on my hand because I had put my hand playing or whatever. And they got on some bully type stuff, and I punched one up in the face real hard with the cast, bloodied up his face real bad. And they took off running up out the school. That was my first time ever dealing with racism. And it wasn't again until I was adult. I've only faced like blatant type of racism a couple times. But what I really want to talk about today, okay, we done spoke now for the last half hour. But what I really want to talk about today is I want to get into the origin of this stuff. All right. Because a lot of us, we like to think or believe that racism was founded in the United States of America by the Europeans who came as colonizers here. And even though they brought a form of racism that had never been experienced by no other people on the planet Earth until then, that's not where it originated. Racism actually originated in India. Did y'all know that? Y'all did? All right, I
Yeah,
want to take it. Well, I know Caste because we talked about it in Sunday school, right, Mo?
Yeah, I didn't know about it outside of Sunday school.
Sunday school, Islam. Okay, so I want to read this, okay? Key historical facts, origins in the Vedas. Listen to this. This is in the Vedas is the religious scripture of the Brahmins in India. Listen to this. And a lot of Moors, you know, I want this for all you Moors who like to demonstrate that arm, leg, arm, head demonstration. I want to show y'all something so y'all can stop saying that. All right, please stop. If you are a Moorish American member of the Moorish Science Temple of America, stop using the acronym arm, leg, arm, head. Stop it. And I'm going to show you why. India caste system, key, historical fact, origin in the Vedas. The Rig Veda, 1500 BCE, describes a divine being, Purusha, whose body parts form 4 social classes. The Brahmins, or priests, form the mouth. The Kshatriyas, or the warriors, form the arms. The Vaishyas, or traders, form the thighs. And the Shudras, or the Sudras, the laborers, form the feet. So the Dravidians were the indigenous people of India. Did y'all know that? The indigenous people, the original people. Now, mind you, India is like almost a third of the population of our planet are Indians. So here in the United States of America, you know, it's kind of difficult. We don't really understand that almost a third of the population of the earth are Chinese, and almost a third of the population of the earth are Indians from India. So it goes without doubt or contradiction that these people, being so much or so large a portion of the population, have had a great influence on the rest of the earth. I mean, when it's that many of you, you have to have influenced the earth a great deal. A lot of us, we think that the United States of America is the hero and the be all when it comes to the human state. Okay, so Dravidians were the indigenous people. Dravidians lived in the Indus Valley before Aryan invasions, 1500 BCE. Aryans called them Dacians, slaves, or enemies. Now, Aryans are European people. Okay, so the caste system that originated in India, it came about because of the Aryan invasion of India. So when we start to see these very, very light complexion Indian people, and I'm not talking about the Native Americans who were, you know, just Christopher Columbus and his people just jacked it all off when they started calling them Indians, because they are not Indians at all. There's nothing Indian about these people. But the real Indians, okay, the Dravidians of India.
Wait, so what were the people who Christopher Columbus is talking about?
The Native Americans. These are the Native Americans. And let me tell you something.
Native Americans, they're not Indians?
No, they're not from India. India is all the way over there in Asia. Not
so
here. They are indigenous people. They are Native Americans. They've been here in America for almost 30,000 or more years.
Right.
So you can't call them nothing but Americans. And I want to tell you something else. The Mexicans, the Puerto Ricans, the Brazilians, the Belizeans, the Argentinians, the Native, these are all the same people. But the Argentinians, the Puerto Ricans, the Mexicans, etc., they speak Spanish. So they call themselves Spanish, or they even go so far as to call themselves Latino or Latins. Y'all ain't from Spain. Y'all ain't from Christopher Columbus came from Spain.
Right. Yeah.
English is a European language. Spanish is a European language. So all of these Mexicans, Argentinians, Puerto Ricans, Belizeans, Trinidadians, all of these people who speak the Spanish language, they're no different than the rest of the people who speak the English language. You have been colonized and forced to speak someone else's language. And worse, to forget your own. So here it is today. I don't know how to speak nothing intelligently but English. Clearly, my people not from England. My ancestors ain't from England. Clearly. So I'm speaking the language of colonizers. And those who speak Spanish, who look like me or similar to me, who are Asiatics, yeah, they doing the same. So when we call a Mexican person, a Puerto Rican, Argentinian, a person from Honduras, when we call them Spanish, it's just like calling them a nigger. Because they not from Spain. Spain is in Europe. Okay?
I see what you're saying.
So when these Aryans came to India and began the colonization process, it say Dravidians lived in the Indus Valley before Aryan invasions in 1500 BCE. Now, 1500 BCE, Moors, understand that we're talking about 3,500 plus years ago. 3,500 plus years ago. All right. Aryans called them dastas, slaves or enemies, and pushed them into Sudra class or below it, into a class that they called the untouchables. Now, just like in the Americas, where they said that it was illegal for slaves to read, it was illegal to teach slaves to read, it was the same thing in India. But in India, it went even a little bit further. It was also illegal to allow for a Sudra or an untouchable to hear the scriptures. So they didn't even want them to know about God. Think about that. They didn't want them to know about God. They didn't want them to hear that was illegal. And for you to be the individual who read the scripture to them, that act was punishable by death. Just like in America, y'all know that in America, it was a crime punishable by death to teach a slave to read. Y'all knew that, right? So do you ever ask yourself, if it was a crime punishable by death to teach our people to read, why people don't read more?
Not really.
People don't be focused on that. You like focused on that type of stuff. I don't know.
Because they've been strategically distracted from it, or they've been strategically made to believe that it's unimportant. but they've been strategically made to believe that to read is the act of slavery. There has been so many different forms of misdirect. Something has been drawing you away from what is best for you. That makes sense?
Yeah, I think some people can't even, you know what I mean? Some people can't even understand. That's, yeah.
No, I bear witness. I'm gonna tell y'all something. Um, you know, in prison, everybody's reading. In prison, everybody's reading something. I mean, the person in prison who does the less work, the least amount of work on themselves, reads more than the average person out here in the world. They watch the news more than the average person out here in the world. They are more conscious than the average person out here in the world. And this is the person who is the least conscious amongst the rest of the prisoners. So,
Well, you know, they say prison is the best school.
I mean, but I'm glad you never went there no more.
Yeah, I
You
know.
know, let me tell you something, Cash. I want to tell you something, son. Whenever I looked up and seen that bus come in, and I would see, young people get off of that bus, every one of them looked just like you to me. I would see you in every one of them, and then I would do everything within my power to help them to get out of here as fast as possible and to get out of here as best prepared to come out here and be successful as possible. Because I never wanted that for you. Right?
Yeah.
The best place for learning is the Moorish Science Temple of America. Okay. When I was in prison, the fact that I was in prison is not what changed. I lived in prison a long time. There's so much drugs in prison. There's so much alcohol in prison. There's so much trouble to get into in prison. And most of us, that's where we find ourselves. Right there in the mix of all of the drama. But when I came to the Moorish Science Temple of America, I found what I wanted to do with the rest of my life, and I found a starting point. I was taught a lot of things. I mean, I was taught degrees that a lot of the sheiks and adepts out here, they like to think or believe that we didn't have high degrees in prison. They wrong. Now, with that being the case, all praise due to Allah. We come home with a lot to learn, but we also come home prepared because of our loyalty to the government that is the Moorish Science Temple of America while we was inside. All right. So in prison, you find that institutions are influenced by us. A lot of people, whenever they get into situations, they look to their left, they look to their right, and they don't know where to turn, they turn to us. And because of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, we have answers and solutions to the problems that they face. All praise due to Allah. That's just the reality of it. But I come out here to the world, out here in this world, and I find people who, actually met a couple people who came to the Moorish Science Temple of America, took up membership for a little while. They were against reading. They were like, we don't read, and stuff like that. And after a while, I realized that they didn't read because they really didn't want to. They really didn't know how. Like, they just didn't know how. Like, when I was alone with them and asked them to read some stuff, they didn't know how to read very well. And so therefore, the active European psychology made them to reject the process of reading. Whereas in your Holy Quran, the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, he speaks to you. And on page 3, he calls you by a particular name. He don't say Cashmere Pennington Bey. He don't say Lester Bey. He don't say that. He say, dear reader, right? He say, dear reader, do not falsely use these lessons. They are for good, peace, and happiness for all those who love Jesus. Now he talking to you, but look at what he called you. He said, dear reader. So one of the qualifications or the qualities of the Moorish American Muslim is reader. So if one says that I don't read, I don't like reading, I don't want to read, this ain't the place for you. There ain't nothing wrong with that. But the truth is, this is not the place for you. Because Moorish Americans are readers. Now, when we say read, what's the definition of read? Look it up.
Look at and comprehend the meaning of written or printed matter by mentally interpreting the characters or symbols or of which it is composed. And then
Written.
definition number 2, discover information by reading it in a written or printed source.
Discovering information by reading it in a written or printed source. Right. This is what we do. The Holy Quran and the doctrine of the Moorish Science Temple of America is written and it's printed. It's written and it's printed. And if you refuse to read it, then you are refusing to know it. All right. So let's get back into this caste system, right? So in the Dravidian caste system, you had the Brahmins or the priests who were, only way you could be a Brahmin or a priest, you had to have what the Dravidians considered white skin. So it wasn't about what you knew. It wasn't about, how you lived your life. If you lived your life according to the teachings of Brahma, that wasn't the case.
But you know something? That don't sound racist though, because all of them the same race, right?
They are, but listen, it gets deeper than that, though, Mo. They had the whites, the yellows, the reds, and the blacks. So the whites were the Brahmins or the head. The yellows were the warriors. The reds were the traders or the merchants. And the blacks or the dark-skinned people were the sutras. Now, you cannot do anything to change where you are in this caste system because you can't change the color of your skin. So all of your children, forever and ever, according to their caste system, if you are dark, if you are black skinned or dark skinned, you and your children will forever be slaves or enemies or untouchables. Listen to this: slaves, enemies, untouchables. Period. It doesn't matter what you contribute to the people, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how good of a person you are. It doesn't matter how intelligent you are. None of this matters because your skin is dark. So you are a Sudra. Now in the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science,
So what were the police?
the warriors, they had to, in order to be the police, you had to have what they considered yellow skin. So huh?
I said that stuff is crazy.
Yes. So if your skin too dark, it don't matter that you want to protect the people. You want to protect the people, That don't matter. Your skin too dark. Your Sudra. You can't do it. All right. So this is the origin of the caste system. That's how it originated. So then in the 15th and 16th century, and here in the Americas, a caste system was adopted. They called the so-called Native American, the Native American so-called Indians of America were under the caste system classified as savages. The so-called darker complexion Asiatics, you and I, were called Negroes, black people, colored folks, slaves. Slaves. And the Europeans, even the so-called Jews, this is the reason why the Jews come into this mix, because America provided a way out of the ghetto for the Jews. So when the Jews came to America, according to the American caste system, which contrary to the Indian caste system, was raised the priests up to the highest standard. In the American caste system, the so-called white people represented the highest individuals within the caste system, the so-called white people. All right. So that meant that the Jews who in Europe were locked in ghettos and gated communities and locked up every night because they had brown or black hair or brown and black eyes. They were locked up. But when they came to America, their hair and their eyes didn't matter no more. It was just about their skin color. All right. And remember that they brought to America great amounts of money. All right. Now let's get into, matter of fact, let's go ahead and get into that. Oh yeah, I wanted to tell y'all that in the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, chapter number 12, Jesus speaks to the Muslims of India. Those Muslims of India that Jesus was speaking to were Sudras. That's why they didn't know nothing about heaven and hell. Because remember, it was illegal to read the scriptures to them. So when Jesus asked them if they knew anything about heaven, and they said, of happiness, they said, we in heaven, they said we heard of the place, but they really didn't know about it because it was illegal for the scripture to be read to them. That's why they didn't know about it. You understand what I'm saying? So let's get into this thing about these European ghettos. Now this today, living into this era of time now, where these same so-called Jews who we finna get ready to talk about are over there demonstrating acts of genocide against the real Jews. You understand me? They demonstrate acts of genocide, trying to wipe them out and kill them and just completely steal and take their birthrights from them and claim them for themselves. This is the time that we live in. So here it says European ghetto, key historical fact. First ghetto, Venus, 1516. The Venetian Republic forced Jews to live in a walled island area called the Ghetto Nuovo. Gates locked at night, guarded by Christian watchmen. Origin of the word ghetto, possibly from Italian ghetto, foundry, or borghetto, small borough. Jewish ghettos across Europe. Ghettos existed in Rome, Prague, Frankfurt, and others by the 17th century, often overcrowded, poor, legally restricted. Nazis reinforced the ghetto model, 1930 through the 40s. In World War II, Jews were herded into ghettos such as Warsaw Ghetto before being sent to concentration camps. Over 400 ghettos across Nazi-occupied Europe. Modern usage in the 20th century U.S. Post-Great Migration, Black Americans were redlined into poor, segregated neighborhoods. These areas were later labeled ghettos due to poverty, policy-based confinement, and racism. All right. So these ghettos started by blonde-haired, blue-eyed Europeans who decided to lock up dark-haired, dark-eyed Europeans in gated communities. At night, every night, they would send these same Europeans. Now, mind you, some of them, they cousins and aunties and uncles, they gonna send them in these gated communities, lock them up in these ghettos. Now, what I really want to dig deep into is what happened in these ghettos. I want to show the contrast about what took place in these ghettos where the so-called Jews was locked up in comparison to the ghettos where we live today. Right? We talked about it in Sunday school. Y'all seen on the cartoons where like on what's it called? The Road Runner and Bugs Bunny, where they got the broomstick with the little cloth with all the stuff in it. Y'all seen that? They carry it on their back.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So the Jews would come out of the ghettos with these sticks. They would have candles that they made, tools that they crafted, whatever type of goods that they had to sell. You know, fruits or vegetables that they grew inside of the ghettos, they would bring them out and they would sell them. They would then take that money back into the ghettos at night when they got locked up. They made a vow that whatever money that they took back into them ghettos at night, that money was never coming back out. It was never coming out the ghetto again. Never. So every day they would come out, they would go out, they would provide their services, they would sell their goods, and at night they would get locked back up in their ghettos. And they would take money back into them ghettos. As a community, as one people in them ghettos, while they was locked up in them ghettos, they established a religious system that was far different than what the Judeans practiced during the time of the prophet Jesus. See, a lot of people like to associate these Jews or these so-called Israelis who are killing the Palestinians today with the individuals of scripture during the time of Jesus, but it's not the same people. Because these people today who are over there in Israel killing the indigenous people of Israel and taking their land come from Germany, they come from Russia, they come from Poland, they come from Europe. Not a single one of their ancestors come from Israel for real. They were in those ghettos and they come together and decide that they are going to steal and take the birthright of the chosen people of God, because the Bible say what? It say that the Hebrews or the Jews are the chosen people of God. Y'all hear the African Hebrew Israelites, you know, regurgitate this every time they want to get into an argument with somebody. They claim that they are the chosen people of God and that God loves them more than they love anybody else. All right. And then they go to the scripture and they quote the instruction from the scripture, and you got these same Jews. So here it is, you got these so-called Jews. This is why Jesus said, woe to the man who calls himself a Jew, because these so-called people who claim to own the Hebrew heritage today, no matter what color their skin is, no matter what color their skin is, they are just like Israel before he became Israel, but Jacob the heel grabber. They want to steal somebody's birthright. Both of them, the European pale skinned ones and the ones who look like us. They try and steal somebody's birthright. All right, that's what they doing. Period, point blank. And I'm here to be challenged. Challenge me if you want to. African Hebrew Israelites, if you don't like them, Maurice Pennington, they said that y'all is just like Jacob, y'all heel grabbers, y'all con men, and y'all trying to steal somebody's birthright. Then let's talk about it publicly and let the public judge whether or not the master student is speaking the truth or you and your thieving ideology is true. And any European so-called Jew over there proclaiming that the Palestinians, whom have the blood of Jesus running through their veins, you want to take their land, I challenge you. I'll do the same thing. Come holler at me publicly. We'll see if the master student or you are telling the truth. Simple as that. You understand me? I know you're lying. I know you're faking it. I know y'all are stealing. You know, maybe the rest of the people, you know, want to get on your side because of all that money you took into the ghettos. But we not for sale. We are not for sale. Yeah, we are not for sale. Still, okay, I got off topic. I brought y'all here for a reason. I want to tell y'all something. Because these same jewel thieves, these same individuals who want to steal somebody's birthright, I declare to all of the Moorish Americans that we need to take a page out of their book. All right? They were forced to sleep in them ghettos, to live in them ghettos. And they made a covenant to the ghettos and the people of the ghettos. They said that whatever money that they took into them ghettos at night, it was never coming back out. Now, my people, the Asiatic nations of America, who live here in the United States of America, make a lot of money. I want to show y'all exactly. I want to give y'all an idea. Watch this. Watch this. All right. The consumer spending power of the so-called black people in America in 2023 was over $1.6 trillion. One year. Consumer spending power. Black-owned businesses over 140,000 with 150 plus billion dollars in annual revenue in 2022. Okay, so now look at this. So the black-owned businesses have over $150 billion in annual revenue. But the so-called black people spend over $1.6 trillion. Now, if y'all didn't know, that the difference between a billion and a trillion is 1,000. This is a big deal, y'all.
Yeah.
This is a big deal. What y'all young people, what y'all think about that?
That's crazy. Once because I'm trying to get my thoughts together. What you said about it. On TikTok, this young lady came up with an idea, and I haven't been following up on that idea as I should have been. I've been seeing a lot of people talking negative about it, and I didn't really like that, so I kind of like got it off my For You page because I don't like once we talk down upon other people and their ideas. But she said something similar to you, like we put $1.6 trillion into America's GDP and stuff like that. How about we start investing it back into our community? And she created something. You can look it up on TikTok. She wanted to start something called the Black Project 2025. And her idea was that with all the money that we invest and spend, we divert it and put it back into our community to develop things like grocery stores and housing and to uplift each other and all that. And it was a good idea. She raised I think it was 100K. And like with anything and any ideas, it takes planning, and with planning comes time and things like that. And I just feel as our people were so impatient and they wanted to see results fast that they started going to the right and started saying that the girl was a scam. And but I felt like her idea was good.
Wow.
That's something like we should all, instead of just so immediately hop into it's a scam, I felt like we should have sat down with her, contacted her. Maybe she was trying to establish more guidelines, like get it registered as a nonprofit and all of that. And she did, and she was actually starting to look for a team to continue to build a website because they had a communication thing, and it was so many people who actually liked the idea and joined the communication thing. They broke the server.
Mm,
They
thanks.
broke the server to like the communication chat where she was giving updates and stuff. So she was trying to find a team to create a communication chat that can handle all the people who was interested in like the Black Project 2025 and stuff. I gotta Google that and see where it's going with that. But this definitely haven't been the first time I heard somebody talking about that and diverting that income or even a portion of it back into our communities and building and uplifting each other. Another example, I was on YouTube and seen the video, and it's called "How the Mexicans is Taking Over the Housing Industry," and it's a Mexican man with a Thanos gauntlet, like from Avengers. And my best friend was telling me like she saw a video and he said what they do is something similar to what Asiatic people did once we first actually during the Great Migration was coming to Chicago. Everybody living in one apartment,
Mm-hmm.
like the Jews did in the ghetto, stacking all their money up. The money wasn't leaving the apartment. And
Mm-hmm.
once this person got a certain amount of money, they'd go buy a house and leave the apartment for this people and help them get their house and stuff like that. And I feel like us as Asiatics, we lost that
That's right.
because exactly what these so-called Mexicans doing now, we did during the Great Migration. Our great grandparents and grandparents did. That's why Bronzeville got so many bedrooms because it was about 4, 5 families staying up in one apartment.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm
Absolutely.
grateful that, and I want to give praise and honor to the Asiatic teacher who taught me this information that I know, who taught us about the Great Migration.
Wow. Who is that teacher? Tell the people who that teacher is.
Donnie Bankston. That's an incredible educator, one of the best educators I met in my life. They do so much. If you ever heard of the school KIP, Knowledge is Power program, they work for KIP. They they also the board of social justice and social emotional learning. They actually like they starting they starting programs to teach Asiatic people about mental health and stuff is real and like they never sugarcoated anything about history.
Hmm.
Uh, they a smart individual, like very intelligent,
You
and
know, the first place where I started the first place the first school I went to where I actually learned about our people. They taught us about the COINTELPRO and all that. It was a alternative school called the Annixter Center in Chicago. It was up on the north side on Armitage, and I went to this school, and believe it or not, all of the teachers were European people, but they were all like hippies. You understand what I'm
mhm,
saying? And they all had participated in the civil rights movement of the '60s. They were members of the Black Panther Party. not members, but contributors to the Black Panther Party and stuff like that. And they were really, really focused on making us learn this stuff. And it was crazy because at the time, I really wasn't that interested. You understand what I'm saying? Like I really wasn't that interested in what they was demonstrating back then. And it wasn't until years later that I realized what they were trying to give me as an Asiatic man growing up in America. And to this day, I greatly appreciate them for what they did. But the Anderson Center is not there no more. So, I don't know how to get in contact with these people and really say thank you to their face, which I wish I could. I actually wish that the Anderson Center was there, that I could actually go and speak to young people who might, have the same type of feelings that I had back then. But I don't, so I demonstrate with you more. You see what I'm saying? Uh, yeah. So $1.6 trillion. Now, I want to show y'all. I want to show y'all something before we close out and call the end to this. I want to show y'all, uh, give y'all an idea how much $1.6 trillion consumer power is in 1 year. I'm gonna ask this question, right? How many countries in the world have a GDP of over $1 trillion? Y'all know we live in a world with hundreds of nations. And okay, so the United States of America has a GDP of $30.5 trillion. China GDP $19.2 trillion. Now, to show you the difference between the United States and China, the United States has about 340 plus million citizens. China has like 2 billion citizens, a whole lot more. And the United States is bringing in like $30.5 trillion a year, whereas China is bringing in 19.2. The next richest nation is Germany at $4.74 trillion, followed by India, another country that has 2 billion citizens, $4.19 trillion GDP of its 2 billion citizens, followed by Japan, then the United Kingdom, then France, then Italy, then Canada. Long story short, there are only
the state of California GDP is actually higher than Japan's.
See? So the state of California has a GDP higher than the fifth and the fourth wealthiest nations of the earth. The Asiatic people, the so-called black people in America, has a consumer wealth. This is just the money that we just jack off, that is higher than all but 18 nations on the earth. Now, how many nations are on this earth?
California now has the fourth largest GDP as of 2024.
There are 195 recognized countries on Earth. And the Asiatics here in North America are richer than all but. Let me look at that number again. I want to make sure that we understand this. We are the 15th wealthiest nation on the planet. And we don't have nothing. The 15th wealthiest nation on the planet, the largest consumers on Earth are our people, the wheel inside of the wheel turning. I want y'all to think about that. I want y'all to think about that. I want the people to think about something, man. You know, invest in you. I was speaking to a young man, 32 years old. At 32 years old, a European guy. He owns S&S Roofing, which is one of the largest roofing companies in Central Illinois, like first or second. And he said that I take every single solitary dollar that I have and I keep on betting it on me. He's 32 years old. He makes over $10,000 a day. Right? I want to tell my people, start betting on you. Listen, start betting on you. Okay? I just came home from prison February of 2024. And what I've realized is that there is no competition out here because I'm willing to bet on me. And it seems like nobody else is willing to bet on themselves. Therefore, they're not betting against me. Might not be betting with me, which is a mistake on your part. If you bet on Bay, you're going to win. But you're not betting against me. You're not betting on you. We live in a capitalist country. To some people, they consider that a bad word. But all that means is that if you have something to trade, then you could receive an equal or fair amount in return for it. So for those of us who understand who we are and what we bring to the table and what we have to contribute, then we understand how to gain from our trading of our own personal resources. Ain't that right, boy? Ain't this something that we talk about in the temple regularly and all the time?
Mm-hmm.
Because the Quran says that our religion is the true economy of human life. Ain't that right? All right.
Mm-hmm.
So I want you young Moors to take away from this conversation. Don't go get mad at the brown skin, brown hair, dark eyed Europeans, so-called Jews. Don't get mad at them. I want you to look at them and understand that where they come from and what they fighting their way up out of. That our principles of love, true peace, freedom, and justice won't allow for us to do what they are doing. But we need to fight just as hard as they fight and get up out of this condition that we in as a people. Do y'all agree with me when I say that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Islam? All right. So I want to say this. This podcast has been on for 1 hour, 24 minutes, and 51 seconds. Right now, ain't nobody watching. There was people watching or whatever. But anybody whoever hears this part of the podcast, what I want you to do is to hit the like button. I want you to subscribe to the channel. If you're on YouTube, then subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hit the like button and share it. If you're watching this podcast and you hearing something, you agree with it, you like Paradigm Shifting the podcast, then share it. If you're on Facebook, share it. If you're on YouTube, share it. All right. This was something that I wasn't doing. I wasn't asking people to like, share, comment, subscribe. I wasn't asking people to do all that. But, you know, understanding that this is the way that the podcast get pushed on these platforms. Then like it, share it, comment, subscribe to it. Peace and love. You know what I mean?
All right. Now that goes against everything that you've been taught your whole life. Everything you've been taught your whole life. You've been taught that you think with your mind. But in the Quran, it talks about what the mind does. Think about some of the things the Quran says about the mind. Jesus said, let us forget the body. He said, let us forget the flesh and go with mind. And go with mind. So therefore, he is identifying that the mind is a vehicle that we could use to transcend boundaries, that we could use to transcend time and space. So when the Prophet Muhammad, he talked about going from Mecca to Jerusalem and back to Mecca in one night, the night's journey. How did he travel? He said he traveled on an animal called Barak, and this animal in one stride, he moves as far as his eyes could see at the speed of thought. At the speed of thought, he was traveling with the mind. You understand what I'm saying? What else did he say about the mind? He said, these tools remind me of the ones we handle in the workshop of the mind. So he's telling us that there is a workshop in the mind. And he's saying where we build up thought. He said where things are made of thought and where we build up character. Now he's telling us what we're supposed to be doing in the workshop, but that's not what you have to do because your mind is yours. You can change it when you want to.